Hi, I'm Dennis Atchison and welcome to the Dennis Report. We have many conversations going on today. We have stuff about forestry, about environment, about economy, about how to make our province better. And for the most part, all of it is done in a competitive model instead of a cooperative model, which means maybe we should be listening and paying attention to those people who can guide us through a more cooperative, heartfelt, compassionate, even soulful approach to community and to building a province. We're really pleased to have one of those teachers with us today. So we're really pleased today to have Carlos Gomez with us as our guest. Welcome, Carlos.
Thank you.
In our journey up here, I was trying to figure out how to describe you, and I can't. Good start. So Carlos wears many hats, has many skills, has many stories, and that's why we're here today, for the stories. So not to put you on the spot right away, but do you have a way of describing your background short term so the audience has a rough idea who they're looking at? Because from where you're from to what you do to all the academic stuff to...
Oh boy.
You know those nice little bio things in 30 words or less? Hi,
Oh, well, I'm a parent. I've got 9 kids and currently 8 grandchildren. And that is, so my family, the kids and my wife are the center of my universe. Mm. And from there, then we move out into the community. Both of us all of us are active in volunteer work in the communities because we feel that we're part of that community and need to be giving back to the community. And then beyond that again to the world, to Canada and then to the world, and ultimately to the universe, the whole universe.
Yeah,
so
it's all connected.
It's all connected, yes.
Well, maybe to invite a story, when we were driving up, you talked about working on some things in the 70s of helping build cooperative models in communities.
Yes, I've had a work life, and that's part of my community kind of work. So I worked, actually, I had a job. I was being paid by the federal government, and I worked in implementing the orange paper on social development that Marc Lalonde in the Liberal government of Pierre-Elliott Trudeau had presented to Parliament, and which was approved, and so on. So I ran one of the projects in that document, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience for me because as a person who has always believed in the community and in working in the communities and contributing in the communities, I got to do that and get paid for it.
Yeah.
So
and the project was, because there'll be some younger viewers, so they won't know the 70s and what the project was.
And the project was called the Community Employment Development, or Community Employment Strategy it was. And it was one of the projects. There was another project which was the Guaranteed Annual Income. So a buddy of mine did that experiment in Saskatchewan, and then here in New Brunswick I was involved in doing the Community Employment Strategy experiment, which was to test whether people in communities were capable of identifying their wishes, their needs, and if they were able to learn how to develop strategies and plans for implementing and managing to ultimately achieve their objectives. And I mean, that should be self-evident that they do.
Yeah, but fascinating. So in the mid-70s, there was that orange paper that focused on that.
Yes, yes. And it was, as we can see, it was a socialist idea. heaven forbid that I should say that, right?
Yeah, but Canada's roots used to have a...
Yeah, we had a social conscience.
We've lost some of that conscience,
yeah.
but, you know.
And it was proved beyond a shadow of a doubt during the time of the experiment that, yes, indeed, people in communities, whether they're educated or not, are able to collectively see what their needs are and see what their wants are and their desires for their community, develop a plan for that, and then learn how to identify what resources are available and how to develop a strategy for achieving those. And the people were able to do that without 7 levels of bureaucracy.
Hearing the story, it's like the more things change, the more they stay the same. Because nowadays they call that social entrepreneurship. Or they come up with all of these models or programs sounding like they're new, but it's nothing new. It's just people getting together and they do figure it out.
Yeah, we have to put the, it seems that they have to put the rhetoric of money and economy around it.
Yeah.
For it to be palatable, which is, for me, absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
We should do things simply because they're right, simply because they're the right thing to do, not just because somebody feels, oh, this is going to bring us back money, or this is, you know, that should not be what drives us. So in the project that I ran at that time, we developed a whole bunch of cooperatives. Okay. And the idea behind the cooperatives was that they could then exchange services and goods amongst themselves without money having to change hands. So I suspect that that fact itself was one of the reasons the project was put on, was suspended by the government, because they didn't see tax revenues and so on benefiting from this. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, with your background in that experience then, do you have any thoughts about New Brunswick's North Shore? Because it sounds like current day, it sounds like people talk about the migration of the North Shore down to Moncton and Riverview and Diep's growth rate. And what are we going to do about the North Shore? What are we going to do about rural New Brunswick? Because it's struggling. It's 2014, but the pattern sounds the same. Do you think the testing and the modeling that you did in the 70s would fit for what the solution might be for those parts of New Brunswick?
I believe so. I think that small is beautiful, and I think that we should be focusing on helping smaller communities, helping communities look at their individual aspirations, their vision, their dreams, and help them to realize those dreams. And they're going to then become activities and so on that are relevant to them. It's things that they want, as opposed to things that some centralized government wants and then goes in and implements it in that area, and it fails. You know, a Bricklin, or you know, or well, maybe our younger viewers don't know what that is.
No, but that's there's lots of current ones where it's an election year, government goes in, spends some money in the community, and then the community's left with it as a form of a problem afterward. Afterwards.
Yeah. It's like sending jeeps down to Africa for some of the projects that there would be no gasoline stations and so on, and then they end up not being able to use them.
Well, that's that fun cliche line, we can scale it from Ottawa to New Brunswick or from Fredericton to rural New Brunswick, because we're from Ottawa, we're here to help you.
Yeah. And I think, yes, if we were to say to the communities, you in the North Shore, look at what it is you want to do. What is it? What are your dreams and aspirations? And then look at what do you request as resources to be able to implement some of those things. And if we had a government that would listen and would provide the kind of resources that they need in order to achieve those objectives, then we would have, the people would stay where they are, You know, people in Tracadie don't necessarily want to leave their homes, their ancestral grounds, and come to Moncton or to Fredericton or go to Alberta. They want to be able to know that their home and their beautiful land and so on is a place where they can stay. And if they could do the things that they want to do and value the things they value, then we would have a wonderful, diverse province, which we do. But, you know, we should be encouraging that.
The relationships could be better.
Yeah.
In that model or in that experiment, or not even experiment because that actually happened, but were they able then, when the community came together, created its vision for itself and started to move forward, were they, it's not like absolving themselves of the relationship with government, but were they able to get what they needed to do without government coming and saying, no, you can't do that, whether it's access to a school after hours or whether it's some changes in the road system or some other thing? Were they able to work out a balance so they could get on with what they needed to do? Or did they still need a permission somewhere down the road?
Nope. There were certain things that we did. We established a community committee. So we call it a regional committee. And what we did is we had people from Saint-Quentin, Kedgwick, Robertville, Meneval, and so on, come and participate on this committee. And there would be people from all walks of life. So at the beginning, we had Judge Savoy from Saint-Quentin, and we had a priest from Kedgwick, and so on. But we also had lumberjacks, and we had people who were truck drivers, and every imaginable person, a lot of unemployed people as well, who came and participated actively on the committee. And they, once they had a certain amount of information, so part of my job at that time was to provide information on, for example, how cooperative movements function. How do you do problem resolution within a committee framework, and so on. So they could learn how to get along together and work towards a common end. And they were able to identify a number of things. To give you some specific examples, they thought they loved physical activity. You know, there are people out in those rural communities, they love to go cross-country skiing or skidooing and so on. And what they wanted to create a cooperative on recreation. And then they started building tracks behind their communities or linking their communities. And they had Saint-Quentin, Kedgwick, you know, and all of those areas joined together by a common track that they could use for skidooing, for cross-country skiing, and so on. So because they worked together, they were able to develop this thing, this path and track that went to all of the different communities, which did not happen before because they used to compete with one another and they used to fight about who should get resources and so on. Here they were able to work together and clean the tracks and so forth for behind their communities and link them up, and they ended up with this cross-country skiing and physical, you know, so they could use it in the summertime for running and whatever as well. They also had a co-op. They said, we like weaving. There's a lot of women in that area who did weaving. They had these looms and so on. So they set up a co-op on weaving, and they started making linen curtains and tablecloths and all sorts of things. And Leopold Darpin, who was in Kedgwick, felt and was a spearhead behind creating an agricultural co-op. So they would get together and plant the potatoes and all of these things, and then they would take their goods, the potatoes and the agricultural products that they had, and exchange them for. So yeah, they did not need federal or provincial government approval to do those things. They wanted to do them, they did them. There were things that they had identified on their overall plan which were a little more comprehensive and would have required some funding and so forth, and from external sources, from the government. And they learned how to do that themselves, how to prepare the plan, how to prepare the request, and even to the extent that they were able to bypass several levels of bureaucracy, and they ended up in Ottawa asking the Treasury Board, or trying to get on the agenda of the Treasury Board.
All right.
But so they knew how the decision-making took place,
Yeah.
and they were willing to go to that extent. And just imagine how many levels of bureaucracy they got by in order to do that, because normally what would have happened is they would have had to submit it to the person at the St. Quentin office. That person would have to submit it to somebody at the regional office in Fredericton.
Yeah.
Some bureaucrat there in Fredericton would have to check it for financial administration requirements, etc. You know?
Yeah. Underneath the themes of what you were mapping out, which is a great story, because the same challenges exist today, whether it's the 70s or whether it's an enterprise network trying to develop. In their case, it's an economic model or a business model they're trying to do. It's as if the spirit of bringing people together again needs to be rekindled, or it's rekindled and now it's looking for a place or a method to bring it together. Instead of waiting for someone else to come solve our problems. Some research done back in early 2000 found the Equal Opportunities Act had a big impact on New Brunswick when Robichaud rolled it in, because it then brought a lot of the social issues into the legislature. But some years later, that becomes the root of a problem, because everybody's looking to the legislature to fix their problem back in their community. So it's like we need to remember what community was, and maybe this model does it. And with that comes, when you talked about all these communities used to fighting with each other instead of figuring out how to work together. So that human shift needs to occur about we're not in competition with each other, we're actually interdependent on each other. And which provokes or invites a whole other conversation, a whole other dialogue.
True. The idea of them fighting amongst themselves, what is it about? It's about scarce resources that are held by some level of government. So they see that there's this money that's held by some government office or some government department, and they're competing for a piece of that pie. So then they fight among themselves to try to get a bigger part of the pie. And they don't realize that if you have a vision and an idea, that you're not just looking at a simple pie that you're going to have to carve up, but when you have this vision and dream, that the pie expands, and that you can then, you go after your dream, and you will end up creating the resources that you'll require. You'll have people in the community supporting it. You have businesses, perhaps, that will say, hey, you know, that's a neat idea. This is about us and about our community and the development of our community, and they'll, funds and so on will start to materialize.
But so does it also invite a different feeling of community too?
Yes.
I'm kind of hinting at the sacred. If you need more water, just go and, because your bottle's just down there.
Thank you.
But the notion of the sacred of community too, because that conversation invites that, where they're all sharing in what the vision of the community is.
And as a matter of fact, with you saying that, if you don't mind, is I always start these conversations, I hope, with an acknowledgement of the sacred. And so if you'll permit,
yes, please do.
I want to thank my ancestors, and I want to thank my grandmother for me being here and for the influence that they have had on me. So I am the product, you know, of what they have all along done in their lives and so forth. So my grandmother was my major guru, if you will. She was the one who I lived with most of the time, and she looked after this sick little kid and taught me my values. And I'm so thankful to her. So if you would, I would like to do that. And I start by calling on the spirits of the East, and I ask them to come and be with me and to help open my mind and my heart, and to let the grandmother speak through me, so that she would be proud of me, as opposed to being wanting to slap me and say you should say something different. And I call on the spirit guides of the South, and that place where all of the four-leggeds come from, you know, the deer and the wolf and those four-legged animals, and where summertime comes from. And I thank them for coming and helping me as well, and opening my heart and my mind, so that I can be the channel for their voice. And I call on the spirit guides and the ancestors from the West, and ask them as well, those who live in the sea. So I think of the whale, and I think of the porpoise, and all of those creatures who live in the sea and who have the gift of memory and of our traditions and values. And I ask them to be here with me, so that I will be conscious of what our values are and who I really am. And I call on the spirit guides of the North, and that is the place where the spirits of the mind and of the intellect are, and they come to help me to realize that I do have a mind, and I do have a brain. God gave me a brain, and I'm to use it, and I should be using it for the good of all, and not using it to do bad things. Way-ah, hey, hey, yo. Way-ah, hey, hey, yo. Oh, way-oh. Way-ah, hey-ah, hey, hey, ya, way-oh. Way-ah, hey-ah, hey-yo. So I thank my grandmothers and my grandfathers for all the gifts they have given me and all the teachings they've given me, and I ask that they be here with me and speak to us, speak through me as well. And I thank you for permitting me to do this short prayer. I am nothing without it. So, thank you.
We're all,
right.
in our own way, we're all needing to remember again into that awareness of the sacred.
And this connects me to the stardust of the universe.
Yes.
I go right back to that.
Yeah.
Not just to when I was born, not just to my ancestors when they were born, not just back to the end of the beginning of our race, not just back to the beginning of humanity, but not even just back to the beginning of this earth or this planet, but rather right back to the first Big Bang, when all matter was created, and we are composed of the dust of that time. So if we can think like that, then there is no problem with accepting that we should not be racist, that we should embrace all other humans, all other living things, all other things that are animate and inanimate, the air, the space, right to the very dust of space. So we should have respect for all of that. So then somebody talks about water, I have no problem then with accepting that I have a responsibility towards water, right? It's so easy.
Yes. Yeah, and that would be, we've lived in an age where everything needs to be measured and quantified in order to be considered true, rather than just listening from a deeper place and knowing it to be true. So when you mention water, it makes me think of the need to integrate into mainstream society more ritual. This is where you can come in with respect to water. Lots of stuff through social media. We'll talk about this doctor, or PhD doctor, Japanese, who has developed enough technology to take pictures of water when you pray to it, and what happens to it when you pray to it, when you respect its integrity, because we are it and it is us.
Yes.
Another little story, a classroom somewhere in the United States, elementary school. Here's a plant, you know, the bean sprout thing, and here's another plant, and this one, the students every day came in, grade 3 students, I think, prayed to this one, said, I love you, and to this one said, I hate you. I know. But it was an experiment for the teacher to get the young ones to understand the power of intent and the power of that vibration and that feeling, because the plant that was said, I love you, was twice the size of the other one, with all the other conditions being equal. So young people integrated early in their learning experience because of that teacher's awareness.
Yes.
That be gracious with what you're doing with things. Now, how interesting to try to take that feeling and apply it to wood supply and crown allocation of wood supply in the province. And so the use of the drum, can you teach us a little bit about the role the drum has in remembering the sacred as part of the social or community?
Oh.
And I know, you know, I asked you a big question.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it
but
short.
You have many years practice with introducing people to this instrument and what it means and its strength.
Yeah, this is the teaching. These are the teachings that my grandmother gave to me. She was the keeper of the keeper of the knowledge of the drum, the songs, the language in my community, and so she taught me that respect for those things in particular, and then that embodies everything else. So the drum for me is an encyclopedia of everything, of all of our knowledge. So it's, you know, it's about the tree and the honor and respect for the tree. It's about the skin, so the respect for all animals and so on. The way it's tied together also represents, metaphorically, represents all of our teachings. So we have the drum, which is divided into the 4 quadrants, which then helps me to identify the 4 sacred directions: east, south, west, and north. And as well, I also have 7 sacred directions, because there's up and down and center. Center is where I am, where my soul is. And from here, this radiates out. So even though center represents coming in, like into the center, it's like going into the black hole, because then it explodes out into the total universe.
Yes, the deeper you go in, the further you go out.
Yeah.
Or that the most powerful, because science is developing tools to measure, because that's what science wants to do, but I find it fascinating to catch a bit of information integrated into what's harder to explain, to help those people bridge it. The heart is that center.
Yes.
So the strength and power that comes out of that heart, whether it's electromagnetic field, whether it's vibration, whether it's resonance, it's phenomenal. So the drum is
well,
connected
I
to
love science. I am, first of all, a spiritualist, but I love science because science is now starting to prove some of the things that we have known all along.
There was already known in your bones
Yeah.
if you stayed still long enough to listen.
Like the Japanese scientist that you talked about, you know, when he was able to show how water structures change when you are kind, and how they change again also when you are angry or mad, and how the colors change and so forth, to reflect the input of your intentions and of your energies. We knew that, you know, forever.
Yes.
But we could not prove it. But now a scientist has proven that.
Yeah, and so maybe it reaches a slightly bigger audience for those that are wired that way.
For people who are wired in that scientific,
Because intentions,
prove it to me. Yeah.
yeah, intentions are real.
Yeah.
Because they then set that energy in motion.
And the same as what you said then about intentions and that experiment that was done in the school with the kids and the plants. I haven't done that experiment because I don't like generating the negative, you know. But we have done experiments like that with putting good thoughts into the water and having people drink that and then see how their behavior changes. And it's...
Or a similar story, because I'm sure we're going to hear more and more of those, and we'll get back to the drum. 10,000 meditation Buddhist types went down to Washington, D.C. I think this was in the mid-90s, not sure exactly. And they wanted to meditate on making Washington, D.C. a happier place, because at the time it was #1 in the States per capita for crime. And of course the other people come along and measure. And that particular day, when the 10,000 sat, they weren't all in the same place, but they were all in the same space and same intention. The crime rate dropped 20 to 25% for no explicable reason. And of course, science wants to try to connect the two, but those who meditated already knew what the answer was. So, but many people need pathways and tools and thresholds to go through, and the drum could be one of those thresholds.
Yes. Well, the drum, you know, represents, it's the heartbeat of the universe, the heartbeat of Mother Earth. That's what it represents to me. It is in the first case, the body of the grandmother. So this is her body, this is her belly, and then when this comes, the drumstick comes, and we strike it, then something is generated, something is created, and that's that sound that comes out this way and it's generated. So this is the grandmother or the mother, and the sound is for us, for me, the child is born. So this is the most sacred, this represents the most sacred act possible, which is procreation. You know, the two come together and they create the sound, they create the word, they create the child. And so this is the heartbeat of for me, Mother Earth, Pachamama, in my language, and then so we have the breath as well. So we have the sound of the heartbeat, and then when I sing, dun, dun, dun. So when I sing, then this is the breath. So heartbeat, breath, and usually I move and I dance when I'm playing. So we have heartbeat, breath, and movement, which is life itself. So the drum represents that, the heartbeat and life itself. It's round, so it shows that the red people and the yellow people, the black people and the white people who are on this thing are in a circle, and they have to work together to make this drum work. So they have to work together, and they have to cooperate, and they are equal So this one here, which I will say is the red people, is not bigger than this one, which is white, or black or yellow. We're equal. So the drum supposes that all of us are equal and that we work together to make life work. And so that teaching is in here. So as a native person, or as a red person maybe, I cannot believe and think that the black people are inferior, or the yellow people, or the white people, that I'm superior. If I were, then I would not be respecting my own teachings, or the teachings that my grandmother gave us. So I would say she was a very wise woman, and that the teachings that she shared with me have formed who I am, because I hope that I embody those teachings. I wasn't always like that, though, I gotta tell you. You know, I did have prejudice and so on, but the drums helped bring me back to the teachings.
Yeah, because it's part of the journey where the lessons come and find us, but something keeps pulling us back to center.
Yeah, back to center. And when I play the drum, I am happy. When I play the drum, I could have any kind of, you know, I could have had bad experience outside, somebody cutting me off on the highway, or somebody saying something nasty, or, you know, whatever, financial problems. But when I pick this up and I start to touch her, and I start to feel that vibration, it reaches and touches something primordial within me. Now, I don't want to explain it on a scientific basis, but I sometimes have to do that. But that's how it makes me feel. And then it's like all that negativity starts to fall away from me. And within minutes, I'm joyful, I am centered, I am back to, you know, to center. And then it's like all of those things have fallen away, all of those negativities. Well, actually what happens is that I am now connected back to the universe. First connected to you and this room, and then you know, connected to the community and outside, and all the way back to outer space. And I feel that I am part of the whole. And so all I can have then is love for the entire universe. That's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And I try to share that when I'm teaching, so that everyone else who picks up the drum and who believes, who has that intention as well, and who believes, I challenge people to believe. And when they do, and I think you've participated in my classes as well, and I think people who do have such an expansion in their minds and their hearts, and helps them to be at peace with whatever their situation might be, and accept it as the learning, as the lesson that it is. You know, all the challenges we have in life are lessons that help us to learn and to grow. And
there's some people, because we're all at different points on our path or our journey, whether it's an individual one, or the community's one, or a province's one, or a country's one, all those energies are always connected. Then the drum seems to appear as a chance, or a moment, or a threshold to remember that it's all connected. It's always fascinating going down this road, because in the back of my head I can hear the business types, or the political types, or the academic types, who will find their own thresholds or their own spots where they'll struggle with making that leap into that kind of energy. And yet somewhere inside of them they already know. They already know. They just got to let go of it. So for instance, it comes to mind is on YouTube you can find Dr. Sue Morter. And you can search it, and she'll be talking about how everything's connected in her way, and she'll go to the heart and say, so to give you an example, it could be a drum, but she uses a guitar. So if there's a guitar on this side of the room and a guitar on that side of the room, and they're tuned to each other, and you hit the D string on this guitar, that D string will vibrate. And then she goes, your heart is that same guitar. So if you want to improve your economy, you want to improve your politics, you want to improve your quality of life in your community, all those hearts can come together and find that space where they resonate together. But you know, we have to overcome some things first, or have a willingness to go explore that first. So imagine building I want to scroll up to imagine building an economy based on the drum, you know, or having all of that resonance in there, rather than here's my project and your project, and all those projects compete. Like your story of the community in the early days, and they wanted to compete.
It's so interesting to look at what's going on in some other places. The internet is wonderful that way too. It links us up across the world, and we see that we are not really all that separated away from others. But you know what's going on in Iceland, for example, with where they have people at work in factories and what have you, and then they have a break time where they get to go and do art, they get to go and do yoga or meditation or whatever, and they have found that the productivity is jumped up, and not only that, the people are happy. The people are happy. I hate to always see people link our living and our behaviors to economic models and so on. I just despise that, because you know, it's not about that. It's about us as human beings doing the things that we love, and taking the time for that spiritual and emotional expansion of self, and
the energy.
And the energy, yes.
Because if we had that word more integrated into all our conversations, what is the energy of this? Whether it's the form of, does it make you happy?
Maybe spirit.
Yes, that's it. You know.
You see, why are we hiding from that word? Why are we hide? You know, and the same with the word God. I'm not suggesting that we just, you know, how we just use it willy-nilly.
Yeah, it's not casual.
No.
It has a powerful intention.
But, you know, a person could come to me and say, well, are you, do you believe in God? Or actually, I'll turn the question back on them, you know, and I'll say, well, what do you believe in? And if they say to me that they're an atheist, I say, well, okay, fine. But do you feel a sense of connection to your community, to the universe? Do you feel something bigger than you? Do you feel connection to the trees? Can you? I talk to the trees. I talk to the animals. I talk to the air and the water.
You feel it.
And I say it that way, but is it God, or is it just my connection to the universe? And I don't really want to get hung up on the semantics of things. You want to say that I believe in God? Fine, I believe in God. Or you want to say that I believe in my connection to the universe,
the Creator,
and you know,
and that it's all.
Then I am.
And that it's all in us. Like we get to go to that place and get to share it. And the drum becomes one of the ways of
the drum is
transporting. The how many of these have you made? How many of these have you helped other people make?
Well, I've been doing these classes and so on for 25 years, and or maybe it's even more now. But at one point, you know, I decided that I had to be who I was, and I stopped working and being a sociologist or a civil servant with the government, and focus on the teachings of my grandmother, and I've been doing that for that length of time. Some of my students did some calculations, and they came up with about 2,800 drums that we've done. So I've seen about probably 2,600 people, and helped them to make drums and to become drum adepts in some cases. I always tell them, I don't want you to make a drum if you're going to hang it up on the wall and leave it there. You make a drum to play it. And I put them through, I don't put them through a handicraft course. So I don't just get them to make a drum for making a drum's sake. I teach them how to make the drum in over a period of about 6 weeks, where they have to understand intention, they have to understand their spirituality and the path that they're taking in making the drum. The respect they have to show for the trees, the respect they show for the bear grease that goes on it, and the hide, and the whole process of knowing and learning about themselves and their connectedness to community. So when they finish this, I would like to think that a lot of people have been transformed. When I see some of my students and see what has happened, the journey that they have undertaken, and it's what they put into it, not what I put into it. What I put into it gives me the blessings for that. But when I see them following some of my advice and guidance, doing the things, putting in the energy and the love and so forth, I see transformation happening, and people whose lives have been turned right around. And if I and I did this, I went on. I'm not good at computers, but at one time, a couple of years ago, I went on the email. I did email, and said, on the 11th of November at 11 o'clock, we're all going to gather together and play our drums for 1 hour for peace and love around the world.
Yep.
And within a week or two, there was 160,000 hits, and it went all around the world. And so I had people in Australia and all these. Finally, some of them were saying, well, is it 11 o'clock in your country or 11 o'clock here? I said, it doesn't matter. You have it in your head, it's 11 o'clock, and it's your intent that matters. And we will be drumming at 11 o'clock. Can you imagine how much good that will be doing? And some people said, well, what good is it doing? And I said, it's doing a lot of good. If there are 160,000 people who, for 1 hour, take a break and play the drum with the intent of being happy and peaceful at that time, there's at least then 160,000 people doing that.
Yes.
So that means that those 160,000 people are not out committing crimes. They're not out beating up on other people. They're not out being nasty. They're being nice. Well, so what good, what good does it do? It's at least that. But if you believe, like me, that your energies and so on go out. So when you're drumming, that sound goes out, those vibrations go out, touch other people. Then if you believe like that, like I do, and you believe, I want peace in Biafra, I want those children who are suffering in Japan because of this or that, or the Philippines because of the tsunami, that they be happy, that they be, it will happen. There will be an effect of it. I believe that. And, some people might think I'm kind of nuts, but that's all right. It doesn't matter.
They'll catch up with you eventually.
Eventually, they'll see that there's some truth to what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe the science will come and prove it.
For those, this is a wonderful journey. We could go for a couple hours down the drum path. But would you be willing to, we have about 5 minutes left, so would you be willing to play another song, give us, or another teaching of some kind, and to close us out? Do you have something that would end us with some grace for this interview and this opportunity to be here?
That is so wide, so wide. Maybe I would like to say that the drum became the residence or the reflection of my soul. So there are times in my life when I have been distracted by things in life, got depressed. You know, when I look around the world and I see some of the bad things that we human beings are doing to the earth and so on, and to the water and what have you, it makes me sad. And sometimes I've become depressed. And I might, you know, become very depressed. But when and I forget who I am. I forget who I am because I'm preoccupied by the problems. And I forget, who is Carlos anyway? You know, where did he go? And if I take the drum and I start playing the drum, then all the problems and so on start to disappear. All those concerns that I have start to disappear. Not that I'm ignoring them, but I am letting them have their place while I have my place. And what happens then is that the drum reflects my soul to me. That being, that essence of who I am, apart from the emotions, apart from the ego, apart from, you know, the things that might excite me and so on that physical level, it comes right back to who is the essence of Carlos. That is my soul. And I make a very distinct difference between soul and spirit. A person can be a spirited person because of emotion and experience and you know, etc.
Yep,
but your soul is the essence of who you are. And that brings me back to where I am and who I am, and then all these other things take their place. I am a soul who is on this path, having those experiences to learn from them, but I am always that soul. And I'm having this human experience with those emotions and so on, that I can come back to that. And boys, I tell you,
just a little one, or wherever you go.
Quando, quando, quando de, hey, quando, quando, quando de, yo, quando, quando, quando de, hey, quando, quando, quando de, yo. Here it comes. Quando, quando, quando de, hey, quando. restrain myself and not journey. This song always takes me on my journey. And we don't have the time right now, but
It was wonderful.
thank you so much.
Full of wonder. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
It's great.
Dennis.
As
It's been a
al-
pleasure.
Oh, great. As always, be good, have fun, and love each other.